So what we're going to be building today is this reading list application that lets you manage your reading list. So it is connected to a third-party API. And by connected, I mean it connects to a third-party API. So just to show you how that works, let's say I want to add a new book to my reading list. We'll look for one of the Chronicles of Narnia books. So I hit search, and as soon as I hit search, you'll see it gets all the results that come back from the Open Library API that have Narnia somewhere in the description or the title. So I'm going to add Prince Caspian to my list. This will add it to my backlog or my for later list. So if I come down here, you'll see Prince Caspian over here. We're also going to be using React Beautiful Drag and Drop, which is a package by Atlassian to enable a more UX-friendly sorting experience. So yeah, we're also going to have these lists be manageable. So like, let's say the user's done reading The Hobbit, they can come over here and they can mark this as done. When there's nothing in the list, you just have a little quote from Ben Franklin to encourage you to read some more. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll add the Fellowship of the Ring to our current reading list. And then you'll see at the bottom, anything that we finished will be stored in the done list, which actually isn't drag or sortable. And you can change that if you want, but that's kind of the UX that I thought made sense. But I'm just a guy. There is also the ability to delete things. So you'll see when you hit delete, you'll get an HTML confirmation. If I say OK, it blasts it away from the list. And the nice thing about this is we don't have to worry about connecting this to a third-party API, or if you're trying to put this in your portfolio, which I highly recommend, you won't have to deal with AWS hosting costs or anything like that, because, well, all of this data gets stored on the user's local storage. And you can change that if you want. You can connect it to your own REST endpoints and your own database. Like if you want to connect it to a Supabase database, I'll leave that to your discretion. But for the purposes of this video, I wanted to keep it short and sweet, focus on UI. I think that's it for the overview. So to get started, head to the Shadcn homepage. So that's at ui.shadcn.com. Go to the docs, installation, choose Vite, and then let's start running some of these commands. So I am using yarn personally, so I'm going to be using the yarn commands. So that's yarn create Vite, and it's going to give me some options. So I'm going to name this reading list app. I'm going to choose React TypeScript for my implementation, and I'm going to go ahead and open this. So I'm going to type code, reading list app, and this will open it in VS Code. So let me actually pull that over from the side. And once you get your VS Code open, you can go ahead and hit Control-tilde. That'll open up your integrated terminal. And from here, let's go ahead and follow the rest of these instructions. So we are going to initialize Tailwind. And since we are using TypeScript, I'm going to update my tsconfig. So we head over to our tsconfig, and then inside of the compiler options, just add a comma to this. There we go. Save that. And what this is going to do is this is going to let us reference our components from the component library using the @ shorthand. So the next thing we want to do is we want to install some dev dependencies. Now you can install just the node types if you want, but for me, I like to go a little bit above and beyond, and I like to install the following. So we're going to run yarn add -d, and then I'm just going to paste these in here. So these are just some prettier plugins and stuff like that. I personally, I like to set up my prettier first before anything else. So just because I get annoyed with bad formatting, and I want to make sure that everything looks nice and tidy. So these are the prettier plugin Tailwind CSS, prettier ESLint plugin Tailwind CSS, and types node. So we hit enter, and I am going to zoom in over here just so it's a little bit more legible. Might be a little bit too much, but that's okay. There we go. Okay, so last thing we want to do is where is this? This is our Vite config. So we hit our Vite config, replace that with these contents. And, so this right here is because my VS Code is expecting prettier, but I don't have prettier, so, or I don't have a prettier config, excuse me. So let me go ahead and paste one in here. So my prettier config for Vite Tailwind apps is pretty simple. So I just pasted this in here, just create a prettier RC file, so .prettier RC, and in here just copy pasta this. So you have the prettier plugin Tailwind CSS, and I don't like to deal with semicolons in my code, so you can disable it using this. And I also prefer to use tabs just because it's a little bit more accessibility friendly. So, and you don't have to do this, you can use spaces if you want, but this is just my preference. So once you have that, I think the last thing is just initializing Shadcn. So let's go ahead and do this. And I'm doing this first because we are going to be using Shadcn components here. I debated whether or not I wanted to go and just do like raw Tailwind CSS, but I figured, you know, like the purpose of this specific tutorial is to go through like the entire, I shouldn't say the entire process, but like it's to kind of show like how to make smarter React applications, meaning like React applications that are hydrated by third-party data sources and so forth and so on. So because there's like so much going on, I didn't want to like spend 6 hours doing all the things that we can do in like, I don't know, maybe 2 hours. So yeah, that's more or less what it is. And also Shadcn is beautiful. It's a really nice package. So, well, it's not a package, it's an implementation. And you'll learn more about that as we go. So in this prompt, let's see, I am using TypeScript. You can select what style you want to use. I'm using the default, but New York is just a little bit more condensed, and like everything is styled a little bit tighter. I'm just going to be going with the slate option. And for my global CSS, I think he actually has the options here listed for what you should do for Vite. Yeah, there we go. So this is going to be just your base CSS, which is at source/index.css. Did I spell index right? Yeah. And then we do want to use CSS variables for colors. And we are not using a Tailwind prefix. Our Tailwind config, that is correct. That is correct. Enter. Yes, I do want a libutils. And we are not using server components because this is Vite, which is client-side rendered. And we are good to go. So hit yes, and it'll install dependencies, and everything is looking super dapper. So yarn dev, and it's running at localhost 5173. So just alt click that to open it. And now we have our server running. So yeah, now, well, actually let's clean some stuff up real quick. So I do want to get rid of app.css. We don't need this. Yep, bye-bye. We do need to clear out. Actually, no, this is cool. It already updated our index.css, and I think that is about it. I am just going to get rid of everything in here and just do RAFC just so that we start blank slate. We save, and nice. We are good to go. So first thing we want to do is, I'm actually going to hide the sidebar real quick. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is actually connect to the Open Library API. And if you head over there, so it's just openlibrary.org, you head over to this sidebar over here, this hamburger, and you'll find under Developer Center, you'll find there is something. Yeah, there we go, Web API. So click on the Web API, and then there's a few different APIs. The one that we care about is Book Search. And yeah, there you go. So you'll find all the details for the API here, like what you can use, what you can do, all that kind of stuff. It is constantly growing, so hopefully this tutorial has like some longevity. But in the event that something changes, this is where you want to come so that you can change things up a bit. So yeah, so this is the API that we're going to be using. So let's create the component that we're going to use for searching. So let's first add a default export. So export default app, and we can remove this first export keyword. And then in my components, I'm going to go ahead and create a new component called book search.tsx. I'm going to run RAFC to initialize the component. And this component is going to require, so it's going to do two things. It's going to have the input for for the query that we're going to search against. So we're going to be able to like search by author, by title, by ISBN, so forth and so on, whatever it is that the Open Library API will accept. So we're going to say const query slash set, not slash, comma, set query. And we're going to set this equal to use state, which we will need to import from React. And we're going to initialize this as an empty string. So this is going to be the query that we type into our input box. The next one, actually, I said we need two things. We actually need three things technically. So the first thing is the query. The second thing is the results. Actually, it's not the results, but it's technically the third thing, but that'll make sense in a second. So this is going to be what we use to store the actual response that we get from the REST API call. So we're going to say results and then set results equal to use state of type any, and it's actually going to be any array. And I'm saying any because, well, we don't have their types defined for their REST API. So this is like a little bit of a hack for us. And to get rid of that, to get rid of this type error that's screaming at us right now, where it says unexpected any, we can just use a nifty little trick. If you go to ESLint and underneath in your rules, underneath the last one, just add a TypeScript ESLint, no explicit any. So that'll get rid of that error. So then what we want to do is add a loading state. So while we're waiting for the results to come back, because this is, and it's technically an asynchronous call, right? Because we don't have this data. We have to fetch this data in order to show it. Well, we need to have a loading state. So we're going to say const is loading set is loading equals use state. And we're going to default this to false. Now we'll create the async function that is going to actually run when we hit the search button. So we're going to say const search books equals async, and I am going to accept that suggestion. It's going to take in no parameters. And inside of here, we're going to say that if there is no query, so if the query is empty, then return. And if there is a query, what we want to do first is we want to set loading to true, right? Because right now we're about to kick off our asynchronous call with a try catch. And right before we actually try, we want to have our loading state set to true. That way we can't keep clicking the button while there's a call that is about to be in progress. So inside of our try catch, we're going to say const response, and this is probably a good time for you to install Axios. So just yarn add Axios. Cool. Then you can hide your terminal again. And in here, we're going to await Axios. So I'm going to import that up there. Hello. That's a weird import. Let's try that again. Axios. There we go. I don't know why it imported it like that the first time. Axios.get, and we need to pass in the URL for the Open Library request. So if you head back to the Open Library Search API, you'll see it looks kind of like this. So where we have openlibrary.org/search.json, q equals, and then this is the query, right? So we're interested in this part. So we copy that, head back to the interpolated string, add that over there, and then we'll open up a curly bracket so that we can pass in the query that the user has typed in. So let me first actually define the type for what we're expecting our result to be. And we're going to call this search result. And we actually need to define this type up here. So, well, I say type, but it's actually an interface. I guess we can just call it a type. So type search result equals, And this type is going to contain docs, which are going to be not a new type of any, because I don't know what the return value is going to be. Well, I know what it's going to be, but there's no way I'm going to be able to create a type for what docs represents, just because it's like huge. And we don't need all of the things that come in docs. There's other ways to do this. It's just, this is a little bit more expedient. And then we're going to say num found. So this is going to be the number of results that we end up getting back. We're going to store this in here. So what do we want to do now? Let's, we need to set the results. So once this response comes back, we're going to set results to the response.data.docs. Okay, so we hit save. And I actually need to catch the error. So if we have an error, we'll say console.error. So this will make your console log show up in big red color. And we'll just pass in error fetching open library API data, and then pass in the error next to it. And regardless of what happens in the try catch, right afterwards, we'll set the loading state. So set is loading to false. So that means that whether it passes or fails, loading will be set to false afterwards. So last thing we want to do is, well, you know what? Let's go ahead and start creating the template, and then we'll start adding some additional logic in here. So inside of this template, we're going to open up I am erasing too many things. We're going to open up a div with a padding of 4. Am I tripping today? Let's try that again. Okay, there we go. Weird IntelliSense stuff. Now, inside this div, we're going to have our input and our button, which we actually need to import from Shadcn. So in order to do that, if you head over to the button and you go down to under installation, there's the CLI command. So nice thing about Shadcn is he created this nice little interface for you to be able to just get errors in your terminal, apparently. Try that again. Okay, there we go. So this interface is not actually installing anything from NPM, unless like you have a package needed from Radix UI, for example. This is just creating this component somewhere inside of my UI library. So it just created this component, copied it over, and it installed whatever packages were needed for it. So in that case, it was the CVA package and the Radix UI React slot package. So now I can actually import this button. So I'll show you quickly how that looks. So if we open this up, type button, and actually I do want to use the shorthand that we were using earlier. So instead of this, we're going to have the @/components. So this is what we were doing in our Vite config, where we defined our import alias like so. So this lets us, instead of having to like type in a relative path every time, it just lets us have @/components. So no matter where you are in your repository, it'll always be the same import statement. Nice little trick. So we'll do button, and then let's also, we need to import the input component. And same as before, copy over the CLI command, enter. And this one will actually, I did this earlier off camera, but this one will require the Forms plugin. So if you haven't already, just run yarn add dev dependency Tailwind CSS /forms. And I did modify the way my Tailwind config looks because I don't like the way he does it. It's like module.imports or something. I don't like the way that works. It's just personal preference. This at least I don't have to write like require or anything like that. I just do it the way I'm used to doing it. I prefer the consistency. So go ahead and update it like so. And once you're done with your Tailwind config, you can head back to the button search and or the book search, excuse me, and we'll go ahead and import the input component, which is, my CLI is being really weird. Not my CLI, my IDE. It's not defaulting to the import alias, but that's fine. So now we have our input. I do have an error over here, and that's because I didn't spell app right. So if I save that, now if I head back to my V application, I can refresh, and there we go. There's our app. And inside of here, I'll go ahead and import the book search component. And you'll see now we have a button and we have this input. So these look terrible, of course, but we're not going to keep it this way. This is just to show like how to import things from Shadcn. So now that we have those imported, we can actually start making them look nice. So inside of our div, we're going to put this input up top, and we're going to give it a type of text. It should be type of text as a string. And then we're going to set its value to the query state value. And we're going to say when it changes, we're going to set the query as the event target value. So set query as target value. And we're going to have a placeholder where it says search for your next book. And there you go. There's our little input. So I don't want it to have it full width like this. That kind of looks atrocious. So we're going to just cut this, add a div with a, so at the small breakpoint. So we do want to have it full width when it's on mobile, but once it hits the small screen breakpoint, we'll give it a max width of X small, paste that back in there, and there you go. So now it's a little bit more manageable. Now underneath here, we do have a button which we want to use to search for books. So we'll say on click, and pass in another arrow function, takes in no parameters, and it will run, dude, what? Let me try that again. Okay, there we go. It'll run search books. Save that. You know, I should probably have some text in here. So let's actually add that text. There we go. And as a matter of fact, we'll have it so that if the loading state is true, we'll have it say searching. Otherwise, it'll say search. Save. So now we can come in here and we'll do Lord of the Rings and hit search. It's searching. And then I got Lord of the Rings, but we have no idea what it is because we aren't displaying that anywhere. So let's go ahead and fix that. So underneath the button, let's add a div with a margin top of 4, a max height of 64, and overflow auto. And in here, we'll just do a unordered list. And in this unordered list, we'll pass in the results. So we'll say results.map, and then we'll open anonymous function with the book in the index. I don't know why I said second. Let's just get rid of all this. Place it with an open parentheses. And in here, we'll pass in a list item. A list item that will have a key of index. I forget how to type whenever I'm recording myself. It's awfully embarrassing. Inside of here, we'll pass in a JSON.stringify of the response. So just book, comma, null, comma 2, just to format it a little bit nicer. And if I hit save, holy heck, you'll see there's a lot of data over here. And this is everything that came back with the Lord of the Rings search. Now, clearly we don't want all this. So we're going to have to do a little bit of cleanup. But before we do that, there's a little thing that's annoying me. I prefer, personally, when I type something in to hit enter to search. And currently we have to actually click the button to search. So I'm going to address that. I'm going to add a function underneath search books. We're going to call it const handle key press. And it's going to be an anonymous function. It's going to take in an event. We'll just say react.keyboard event. And what's going to happen in here is we're going to say if event.key equal. I meant equals, and instead I hit backspace 3 times. So if the key that is pressed is enter, and you can do this for basically any key, but for us we care about enter. We're going to say search, search books. So when we press enter, it will check the key press. If the key press is enter, then it'll search books. So now let's go down to our input, and we'll add an on key up. So you can do on key down actually, but I don't know. I feel like it's better to do on key up because on key down is like when you actually hit down, but sometimes you might want to escape. You might have hit enter by accident and you want to hit escape before you set enter. So on key up just ensures that after like the keyboard, the enter key has come back up, which is a confirmation that the user did want to do that it actually runs. So we'll say on key up equals, and this is just preference. You can do whatever you want. You can do on key twerk, and that's not a thing. I'm just messing around. So we'll say handle key press here and save that. And now if I come here and I write Percy, Jackson, and the Olympians, hit enter, you'll see it starts searching. And one last thing is that button should not be clickable when it's searching. So let's go ahead and fix that. And that's actually super simple. Inside of the button component, we'll just do disabled equals true if is loading. So when is loading is true, disabled is true. When is loading is false, disabled is false. So we save that. Now let's try that again. Harry Potter. And there you go. Now it's disabled. You can't click it. Oh, there we go. So obviously, this is not how we want our data to be presented. This looks absolutely atrocious, and we want to fix that. But before we do that, I just want to add a little bit of a styling change to our div wrapper. We are going to change this later, but this is just like so that I don't go crazy while I'm doing this tutorial. So we'll say class name equals container mx auto. And container is, I don't believe this is a Tailwind. This could be a Tailwind class, to be honest. I barely ever use it if it is, but or I never use it if it is. But I do know that Shadcn overrides it, or at least defines it as such. And mx auto is just margin x of auto. So when we save, just a little bit more contained. So it's nice to have a little bit of space, a little bit of breathing area. White space never hurt anybody. So now let's go back to our book search. I am going to hide the sidebar real quick, and I'm going to hide the, well, no, let's keep the terminal open for a second because we want to display this data as a table. And thankfully, Shadcn does have a table component, which we will import like we did with the input and the button. So copy that command, paste it over there. And once it's done, I'm just going to hide my terminal again. And I'm going to copy these import statements over and then paste them up here. So now I think, yeah, okay. So now we can start actually cleaning up this data and making it look real nice and presentable. So let's go down to this div where we had our results map li nonsense. And instead of having this unordered list, I'm actually going to, yeah, I'll just blast it and type it over again, no problem. So in here, we're going to open up a table. I'm actually going to go back to Vite, just so that, or I say Vite, but it's the our running application. We're going to have a table header. You know what? Just for the sake of time, I'm just going to copy over their boilerplate, because why not? Make our lives a little quicker. So paste that over there. If I save, well, yeah, I still have their data, but that's fine. But just so you know what it looks like. I can get rid of the table caption because we don't need that. But now we can actually start rendering out our data. So we know that we're going to have a table head. Actually, tell you what, I'm going to get rid of these styles too. So we don't want a width of 100 px here. Instead, actually, for all of these, we're pretty much going to do the same thing. So I'm just going to do a padding of 2. Dude, padding of 2. There we go. Then Alt-Shift down this 4 times. And I can get rid of the other table heads. Not 2A, just 2. And in here we'll say the first column is going to be title. The second one is going to be the author. The third one is going to be the year. And the fourth one is going to be the page count. And I added page count just because that makes sense to me, but you can look at the data and see what makes sense to you if you want to show something different. So now down here in the table rows, or sorry, in the table body, excuse me, we want to render our table rows based on the results. So for each result, we're going to have a table row. So we'll open up a curly brackets. We will iterate over the results array. So we'll say results.map, pass in an arrow function, which we will we'll define our iterator as book and our index value as index, and get rid of this curly brace and replace it with parentheses. And in here, I'm just going to cut and paste this table row. I'm going to get rid of this table cell and these table cells. And in these table cells, we're going to pass in the properties of the book. So we'll just say, we'll just clone this down a few times. The first one is going to be the title. The second one is going to be the author name. Third one is going to be the year it was published. So first publish year. And the last one is going to be the number of pages. So that's number of pages median. I don't know why they defined it this way, but it's their API. Now, I should note, sometimes this is not available. It's undefined. So what we're going to do as a fallback is we'll just pass in a hyphen. So if I hit save, there you go. Doesn't our data look so much prettier now? So I do need to actually I do need to pass in this index over here. So we'll say key index, and this is just to satisfy React because it's going to scream at me if it doesn't have a way to reference the things that are changing. But we do need to also make some changes in terms of how we define this, because currently we're defining it as any, because we said we don't know how the docs come back, but now we know, we still don't know how the docs come back, but we know what shape that we want. So we're going to change this to a type that we're going to call book, and right on top of us over here, I'm going to move this later, but for now this is fine. We'll say export type book equals, and this is going to take in those parameters that we showed earlier. So I'm just going to copy those. So control double click these a few times like so. Head back to the interface. The book type does have a key that comes back, which we'll use later. So the key is going to be a string. Hello. I'm just going to clone this down a few times like so, and then I'm going to paste in those values that I copied like so. And yeah, so we can save that. We also have another type that we are going to use. It's not coming back from the REST API, but we're going to use it for our lists because we're going to have like the in progress type. We're going to have the a status of in progress, of currently reading, and of done. So we're going to define that type property here. So this status is going to be done, or, so this is an enum or a union, in progress or backlog. Save that, and we can actually get rid of the table caption because we weren't going to use that. And then I think that's it for this one. Oh, wait, actually, we need to change this any to book, because this any for results, because now we know our results. We want at least part of our results, their shape to be of type book. So you'll see that our response comes back with a ton of results, and believe it or not, these are just the first 100. It's actually a lot more than this. So we want to introduce pagination so that we can be able to, or I mean, I doubt people are going to want to go through like every 1,000 one of their results, but that doesn't mean we don't want to give them the opportunity to, right? So to do some pagination on this table, we need to first define some state values for how many results come back, as well as what current page we're on. Because the open library uses this kind of semantic for their pagination. So like the page, for example, if you say that you're on page 1 and your limit is 100, that means that if there's like 1,000 items and you set your limit, or the limit, it defaults to 100, but if you set the limit to 100, then page 1 is going to show you the first 100, and there will be 10 pages. But we need to incorporate this in our URL. So I guess we can do that real quick, just to kind of show you what that looks like. So next to the query, we will add an ampersand, and we'll say page equals to, well, here's where we'll actually pass in a page state value that we're going to define in a second. And then next to it, we will add a limit. So, and I am defining this as a state value, so that you can later on, if you want to actually have this be set by the user, or so forth and so on, then this is where you'll be able to use it. But we will default this to 100, which is what the default normally is. So here we'll say, we'll just add a few use state snippets. So use state snippet. The first one is going to be the total results. So this is just going to be all the results that come back, right? So it doesn't give you all of them, but it does give you the number of how many total results are available for your search. So we'll set total results, and we'll initialize this value as 0. The other thing we want to do is, as you're paginating through the table, we want to keep track of what page we're currently on. Because when we paginate through the table, basically every time you hit next page, it's going to be kicking off another search request with that page value. So we want a way to keep track of that, and that's going to be the value that we end up passing in to our request URL. So here we'll say, we'll just do another use state snippet. We will say current page, and then we're going to set the current page. And I know this isn't the same page as down here, but bear with me for a second. So use state is going to be 1 because we're starting at the first page, excuse me, which is also the default as per the documentation. So for use pagination with limit corresponding to page, note that the page starts at 1. So just keep that in mind. That's why we're defining it as 1. Wrong page. There we go. So that page value is going to come from search books, right? Now we're going to add the page as a parameter. So it's going to be of type number, and it's going to default to 1. When we run this now, we always have to pass in a page if we are adding pagination. And if not, then the page will always be 1. So this will this 1 over here essentially acts as a default unless we override it in our request. So let's just add one last thing. So the results.page, this is just going to be I'm just going to set this as a constant, and you can, if you decide later on that you want to have this be like an input value from the user, then this is where you can change it so that you can make it so. Now let's, underneath set results, we need to set those new states. So we'll say set total results. So this is the total results value, so all the things that come back. We will set this as response.data.num found. So this is the value that I was talking about earlier that comes back with the search result, num found. This is part of the API response. Where was that? There we go. And then we're going to set the current page to whatever the page value was. So since we initialize it as 1, the page will be set to 1. But when we click next, we want to pass in page plus 1, which will set it to 2, and then it will set the current page to that updated page. Now we need to actually add those buttons. So down at the bottom of the table, or actually underneath the table, let's add a div with a margin top of 4, flex, item center, and justify between so that there's space between them. In here, we'll add 2 buttons. So we'll say button with a variant of outline. So these are Shadcn parameters. On click, this is going to take in a function that will handle the paginating to the previous page, but we haven't defined that yet, so we'll define that in a second. And then this is going to be disabled when the current page is less than or equal to 1, because you can't paginate to 0 or to negative values. Or we don't, what was that? We don't want to paginate when the is loading is true, right? Because pagination is technically a HTTP request, and we want to respect the process of the HTTP request and not send a bunch of it while it's already loading. So that's our previous button. So actually, we'll write previous here, and then in the middle, we'll pass in just a span, and we'll just say the page number, which is current page. Okay. And then lastly, we'll add the next button. So I'll just copy this and paste that there. And we'll say next. And because I'm going to get errors, I might as well go ahead and define these click handlers. So there's going to be 2 of them. We're going to have the previous click. Okay. This is going to take in nothing. And what it's going to do is if the current page is greater than 1, then we want to search books of the previous page. So if the current page is greater than 1, then we want to say current page minus 1. Because if current page is less than 1, or then it would be 0, then current page could be, greater than 1, not greater than equal to 1. So if this was greater than or equal to 1, then we could search by 0, which we don't want to do. So this says that basically current page has to be 2 or more. Then we want to be able to search the books of the previous page. So let's go ahead and duplicate this. And we'll say handle next click. I am going to zoom in a little bit so it's easier to see. So for handle next click, we are going to do a little bit more logic over here. So we're going to say if current page is less than the math.ceiling, this is a JavaScript method, total results. So these are the total results of like how many hits were found from the API divided by the results per page. So if the current page is less than the total results divided by the results per page, we will search for current page plus 1. Okay, now let's copy these 2 like so, and then head down to our click handlers, and we'll just paste them in there. Save that, and you'll see that we are currently on page 1, even though, because our default page is page 1, even though we don't have any results, but let's go ahead and fix that. So Harry Potter. Okay, so we hit enter, and you'll see that we have our next and previous button, which are currently disabled actually, because I didn't fix this disabled. Let me actually do that. So I'm actually going to use the same logic as the handler over here. So copy that, head back down to the disabled, paste that there, and that should have worked. And that is not working because I am using the wrong logic. It's not supposed to be current page less than, it's supposed to be current page greater than or equal to the math ceiling total results divided by results.page, or is loading is true. Save that. So there we go. So now when I click next, searches, finds the next page, do that again, searches, finds the next page, so forth and so on. I do need a way to indicate what search page we're on, because, well, we don't know how many results came back. So we need a way to basically keep track of the search index. So what we're going to do is underneath our click handlers, let's just define two values. So we'll say const start index, and we'll set this equal to current page minus 1 times the results per page plus 1. Okay, so this is basically like if we want to say we're showing 1 out of 100 of this many, this is how we do that. So we say like the current page minus 1 times the results per page time plus 1, and we're going to have the const index. So, whoa, what did I say? Const end index. I am tripping. And this one is, we're going to basically do math.min. And in here, we're going to take that start index that we just calculated, and we're going to add the results per page. So if we have 100 as our results per page, then it's going to say the start index, if our start index is 1, this is going to be 101. But since we're actually only returning 100, we're going to have to do a minus 1 or total results. And the reason we're doing the total results here is because if your search comes back with like 70 things, then it doesn't really make any sense to do showing 1 out of 100 when really you only had 70 results show up, right? So this way we get the minimum. It's either going to be the total values per page, assuming that your results are bigger than a single page, or however many results came back, it'll find the minimum of that. So that's our end index, and now we need to actually show this somewhere. So let's under our button, we'll add a div, the margin top of 2, and we'll say if the total results are greater than 0, then open a paragraph tag with text small, and in here we'll just say showing start index to end index out of total results results. Save that, and you'll see showing 101 out of 200 out of 3,581 total results. So now that we have our content displayed, we need to actually be able to do something with it, right? Because this isn't going to help if someone wants to create a reading list. So we need to add the functionality to add an item to the reading list. So let's head back to our app.tsx. I'm just going to close these out like so. Cool. So in app.tsx, we're going to define a state variable. So we'll say const books set books. So these are the books that the user has added to their list. And then set books will allow us to set the books. And we'll say use state, import that. And this is going to be an empty array to start. And since we do have book defined, we can actually say, we can import that from the book search file. And I'll just, yep, there we go. But it's actually not one book, it's an array of books. Cool. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a, we're going to have a function called add book. Oh, and we also need to have a place for these books to be persisted, right? So we want to store them in the local storage. So we'll add a use effect, which I need to import like so. And what we're going to do is we're going to first need to figure out what books we have stored in our local storage. So we'll say const stored books equals local storage dot get item, and we're going to define our local storage variable for this particular data as reading list, and we'll say if stored books, because remember, stored books might not exist. So if it doesn't exist, this shouldn't run. But if it does exist, then we can set books to json.parse stored books. That's not right. Parse. There we go. Okay. We don't need a cleanup function for this one, so we'll get rid of that. And we don't need a dependency array, so we'll get rid of that. Now, you might be saying, well, what happens if there is no local storage item? To that I say, we will create one in our add book function. So we're going to say const add book. And this is going to take in a new book with a type of book. And in our function block, we'll say const updated books. So this is like our new list of books. This is, again, assuming that we already have books. Book, and this is going to be, whoa, what did I just do? So this is going to be of type book equals to an array that is made up of all of the books that currently exist, as well as the new book. Let's try that again. The new book, so the data that's passed in when we add a new book, with a status of backlog. And what this basically means is when we add a new book, it will pass in, it will expand the properties of that new book and also add the status of backlog. So that by default, when you add a new book, automatically goes to the backlog. That way it's like, you can add this functionality later where it's like, if you want the user to have to add a book directly to their currently reading list or so forth and so on. But in my case, I think it makes sense just to have it default to the backlog and then the user can manage it from there. So let's see. Now we need to actually set our books. So set books to the updated books value that we just defined, which is currently screaming at us because we didn't, there we go. We didn't put the arrow in the arrow function. And now that we have our state value set, excuse me. Now that we have our state value set, we actually need to persist this in our local storage. So we'll say local storage. Did I spell that right? Yep. Dot set item. So what set item will do is, yep, there you go. So if nothing already exists, it will create a new key value pair. So if this is the first time and there's no local storage set, then when you add an item, it'll create that value and then add the content to that local storage value. So we'll pass in the key of reading list, and then we'll say JSON.stringify, because local storage requires everything to be in the format of string, updated books. Cool. So now we can take this function and we can pass it in as a callback function to the child component of book search. So we'll say on add book equals add book. And what this functionality allows us to do is we're basically passing a state setter function. So this state is at the app level, but because we're passing this function down, and because this sets a state at the global app level, whenever we add a book in the child component, this will essentially allow us to modify the state of the parent, which in this case is app. So if you're ever wondering, well, how do I have a child update the state of its parent? This is how you do it. We are going to introduce Zustand for global state management later, which will make all of this unnecessary. But for now, this is pretty much, yeah, this is good enough. So you'll see that we're getting an error from our IDE because onAddBook does not in fact exist. And that's okay. We need to go into book search and define it. So inside of book search, let's open up a curly brace and we'll say onAddBook, and then we'll define the types as onAddBook. This is a arrow function that will take in a parameter of book with a type of book and will return nothing, which is void. So what this is basically saying is it's going to take in onAddBook as a function, which it is, and that function is going to be of type this function. Yeah, you can have you can have functions as a type. It's a little wonky, but it'll make sense after you do it like a couple 100 million times. So now that we have that function being passed in, we need to actually use it somewhere. So if we head down to our table cells, we can add in a last table cell, which will actually take in a button. So I'm going to zoom out for this a little bit because it's going to be hard to see. There we go. So this is going to take in a button. This button is going to be a variant link because it's just going to be a word. And in here, we'll have a click handler. And that click handler is going to take an anonymous function, which will run on add book. Now, if you recall, on add book requires a book. So I can pass in book, but you saw how much data comes back with each one of these books, which is like a lot to store in someone's local storage, and it's unnecessary. We don't need all that. All we need is the things that we defined in our type up here. So I'm actually just going to control click all these. And I'll control click status even though we don't need to. It's just for completion's sake. Paste those there. And then for all of these, I need to actually add a colon. And then because I'm super lazy, I'm just going to control D all these. The next one I'm going to do book.paste. Book.status does not exist, but it's fine because we want to default it to backlog. And we need to add a bunch of commas over here like that. And oh, another thing is number of pages median. Remember how I said this could be undefined or null? So what I'll do here is I'll just say or null. And that's going to scream at us because I was supposed to define this as a optional like that. So now, wait, was that not right? Oh no, I'm a silly goose. It's not an optional. Actually, there are a few errors that I have here. This is supposed to be string or null. So undefined is that it's undefined. Null is that it doesn't even exist. So it's not even there, which is usually the case. It doesn't usually come back where it's number of pages median. Why did I do a double or there? There we go. It's usually that it's not even there, which will be null in that case. We also need to have the author name be an array because I found out that like they store multiple, like when you have books that have multiple authors, they will store them as an array instead of a string. So just need to make sure that's consistent. And oh gosh, my least favorite part is closing this. Oh, this is the button. So I'll just close that button, and in here, I'll just type add. And yeah, I think if I save that, come in here, Harry Potter, you'll see we have the add button. But we are, I don't know if I should add an empty table header, but I'm going to because of completion's sake. So just so that we don't have a mismatch in terms of our header and our body. And then I think, yeah, now we can go on to actually list off the things that the user has added. So let's go ahead and we can add as many things as we want, but, well, where'd they go? Well, that's a great question because I have the answer for you right now. We need to create a new component that we will call book list. And this is gonna where we're gonna do all that fun stuff that I showed y'all earlier, where you can like move things around and see all the different statuses and all that kind of jazz. So in here, we're just gonna say, I don't know why I started typing book, or I've typed book so many times, like glued to my fingers at this point. So we're gonna have our book list component. How are we gonna render this? You know what? Let's just show the books as they are. And no, we don't need to do all that. We already know what JSON looks like. So we are going to need a new component from Shadcn. This is going to be the card component, which is all the way up here. Now the card, gonna grab that. Control tilde, paste that there. Isn't it nice to just have components like that instead of having to import a million things and then deal with like, you know, figuring out what dependencies you don't need and what you do need. Okay, so now back in book list, we're gonna actually set the book list so that it takes in the books. We're gonna pass these down from the app in a second. So we'll just say this is actually supposed to be an S. So books, and then books are gonna be of type book. Bet you wouldn't have guessed that. Now inside of here, we're gonna have so we are gonna have a ton of books, and we're gonna have them show up differently. So I'm gonna like get ahead of this and define a template inside of our JSX, and we're gonna do this pretty frequently. So I might as well get this out of the way now. So we're gonna say const render book item, and in here, this is going to take in the book and an index value. Index value. There we go. Number. I can't type. I can't even read. Yet I'm making up a thing about books. Okay, so I'm getting errors and I don't know why, but it's okay. So in here, all we're going to do, I'm getting errors because this is not a function block. This is just a returning JSX thing. So in here, we're going to grab that card, which I need to import. So I'm going to copy these over, and I'm going to paste them there. So, and you know what? I'll just copy this because I'm a lazy boy. And it pays to be lazy. But we don't need everything here. So first thing we want is, because this is going to be an array, we need to pass down this key. So the index at the card. We are going to have the card header. The card header is going to take in the book.title. And then the card description is going to take in the book.title. Psych, it's going to take in book.author name. And we are not going to have a footer or body. So I'll just, footer or body content. Yeah, we can get rid of those. I'll keep these here for now because, spoiler alert, we are going to need them in a second, but just not right now. So inside of our return statement, we're going to say this is a div. I don't know, space, vertical spacing between things. So we'll say space y8 dot padding 4, and in here we're going to have a header with a margin bottom of 4, a text of 2XL, that's an L, not a 1, and then we'll give it a bold font. We'll say this is my reading list header, just kidding. Down here, we'll add a div, and inside of that div, we will go through our books array, where we will pass in the, not the boss, the book. I don't know why boss came to my head. Index. And instead of this curly brace, we're going to return render book item, where we pass in the book and the index. Now, I am well aware that I could have just done this and pasted that there. But like I said, this is going to get a lot more complicated. So we're just going to get ahead of it now. I'm going to save that. And I'm going to head back to app. And I'm going to need to import the book list component here, book list component. And this is going to take in, as we said earlier, the books, like so. So now we can save that. Then we head back to our app. And there you go. There's our reading list. We have the Philosopher's Stone, Deathly Hallows, Prisoner of Azkaban. Let's add the Half-Blood Prince. Added. Isn't that phenomenal? Look at that. And now, because we have it in our local storage, if I refresh, they stay there. Okay, so now we need to have a way to manage our book list. So, moving it around based on status, because right now all the books are just kind of there, right? And that's not desired behavior. That's not good UX for what we need. So inside of app.tsx, we're going to add a new function called moveBook. So we're going to say const moveBook, and this is going to be an arrow function. It's going to take in the book to move, which is going to be of type book, new status, which is going to be of type book status. There we go. So inside of our function block, we're going to do the same thing that we did over here, where we const updated books, but we're going to do something spicy. We're going to say this is equal to, rather than doing it this way, we'll say it's equal to books.map, because we need to update a book, right? When we're moving a book, all we're doing is we're changing the status. So what that means is we need to find the book, which is book to move. Then we need to update the status based on the new status. So we're going to say book.map. So this is going to iterate over the books array. And I don't know why I pressed enter. There we go. Book. And inside of this arrow function, we're going to basically say if the book.key, so if the current iterator is equal to book2move.key, then we're going to say book, but the status, so the book, meaning the book that we're iterating over, but with a status of new status. So this is going to update the status of the book. Otherwise, just return the book. So it's going to go through the array. It's going to say if the book key is equal to the desired book, so the book to move.key, then update the new status of that book. Otherwise, return the book and then move on to the next book in the array. I need to do something, but I forgot what it was. Oh, yeah. Well, I defined updated books, but now I need to actually use them or set them. So we're just going to copy that from there, set that, and then we're going to, and then we're going to also update our local storage like so. So local storage set item. Yep, that looks good. So now we need to pass in move book to our our book list component. So we'll say on move book equals to move book. Save that. And now head back to our book list. And inside of our book list, we are going to add a parameter called on move book. And this parameter is going to be of type, or prop, I guess, technically, on move book with a type of a arrow function. That arrow function is going to take in a book of type book and a target list. I'm so sorry. I feel like if someone watched this tutorial, they're just going to have the word book just ingrained in their head, which is not the worst thing. All right. So it's going to take in the book and then the target list. So this is where, like, it is technically the book status, but remember, the book status is also the name of the lists, right? So we're going to be calling it target list here. But it's the same thing. Because this is the second parameter, it doesn't matter what we call it. That's just this property name is relative to where we are. If that confused you more, don't worry about it. Void, and let's see. Let's save that just to let Prettier do its thing. Cool. So now we need to use onMoveBook. So remember, this is a callback function. So whatever we do here will affect the state of the parent, being books. So let's say const move to list. So this is what we're actually going to do when we onMoveBook. This is going to take in the book and the target list book status. And this is going to return the onMoveBook book target list. And I'm just, I know I could have done this in the place that I'm using it, but I prefer to make things a little bit clear and consistent. And plus, as you guessed, this is probably going to change in a little bit. So it's going to be easier to refactor later. So inside of our card, remember how I told you we're not going to get rid of the card footer, and that's because we need it here. So we're going to say card footer, and inside of that footer, we're going to have a div with inline flexbox and a gap of 2 between things. And inside of here, we're going to have all the buttons that we use to move things. So we're going to say button. Am I importing button? I'm not. I'm just going to grab that import statement from here. Paste that there. And as we were doing, we have our button. This is going to be a button with a variant of outline. And when we click it, it's going to, hello. Oh gosh, let's try that again. It's going to be an anonymous function that is not taken in a plus. We are having technical difficulties. And we're going to move it to the list in progress. So you probably guessed it already, but this button, is going to be used to move things to the in progress list. So here we'll just add the label of in progress and we'll save, and you'll see there's a button that says in progress. Cool. So if I actually click it, you're not going to see anything happen, and that is because we're not actually rendering different sections for each one of the statuses. So let me quickly duplicate these books down. We'll say, I think the other status was done. Do we want to do done first? No, backlog first. So backlog and then done. So when you click on this one, it'll mark it as done. If you click on this one, take it to backlog, and so forth and so on. Click on this one, take it in progress, and you get the drill. But now we need to actually show it because you don't see the state. The state is changing, but you just don't know it. And I'll prove it. So if you go underneath my reading list, we need to basically render different sections for each one of these. So we'll say that since books is a single array, we need to filter through that array for each one. So we'll say books.filter, pass in an anonymous function, book, and this is going to return if book.status is equal to in progress. Dude, I cannot spell in progress. So this saying is if the book.status is in progress, if that book filter.length is greater than 0, then return this, but it's actually not going to be books.map. It's going to be books. It's going to be this again, actually. So just copy this. Actually, tell you what we're going to do. We're going to have to do it like so. So we're going to have to open this as a parentheses. Then we're going to have to open up a React fragment because we're going to have multiple children in here. Just paste this in there. And we're going to have a header with a margin bottom of 2, X large text, and semi-bold font. In progress. Cool. And then underneath it, rather than doing books.map, we're going to once again do books.filter. So we're basically going to grab this and we're going to paste it right there. Oh, nope, right after books. So this is going to filter the books by in progress. Then it's going to map over that filtered array. And then it's going to render the book item. So if we save that, you'll see that now we have our in progress books. And don't freak out. All we have to do now, duplicate this down twice, and we'll change the second one to backlog, and we'll change the third one to done, and done. And there you go. So now you see we have different lists for, well, our different lists. I think I'm missing something, right? I have an error. I don't know what the error is. Am I passing in the index? I am passing in the index. Let me see. Oh, I know what I need to do. So I am going to get rid of card content. Sorry, I was looking at my notes. And I actually, there's an issue where like if you're already in the backlog, then you shouldn't be able to press this, right? You are pressing it, but like you don't want to be able to. You want to disable that button. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say that for each button, we're going to set its disable to whether or not the current list that this book is in progress. So we'll say list type equals in progress. So this will disable any of these buttons if they're in progress. But you might be wondering, well, where the heck are you getting list type from? And that is something that we're going to need to pass in. So if we come up here, we add list type as a parameter, and we'll set it to string. And then down here, in each of our render book items, we're going to pass in the list type. So for the first one, it's in progress. For the second one, it's backlog. And for the third one, it's done. And now, back in our buttons, we can add these disabled states to each one of our respective buttons. So this one is not in progress, it's backlog. And then I'm going to hide that. There we go. And then in this last one, it's done. So now when we save, you'll see that it disables the button that corresponds with the current status. So if I move this to back, hello. Well, that was not supposed to happen. Okay, so I had to take a second and verify something, but basically I set my filters wrong because I duplicated them and I forgot to update them in all places. So this is supposed to be backlog and this is supposed to be done. So if I save those, now we can actually see our different categories. So we have our done state, move that to backlog, move that to done, cool, move that to done. So, you know, you can kind of see how all this looks. So next thing we want to do is we want to add the remove from list functionality, because let's say you have like some excess stuff in here. For example, I have Deathly Hallows twice. Well, I want to get rid of those. So we're going to add the remove book function to the app the same way we did it before. So we'll say const remove book equals NFN. Book to remove is going to be of type book. And then inside of our function block, we want to first have an if statement where we confirm that the person wants to actually remove the book. So we'll say window.confirm. This is just a window API feature. So this comes with all browsers basically. And we'll say, are you sure you want to remove this book? Cool. If this comes true, so if the user does confirm, then this will be true. Then we will do the same thing we did before, where we'll say const updated books equals books.filter. So we're just removing the books from the book from the books array. We'll say book, and if book.key does not equal to book to remove.key. So what this is saying is it's filtering the books by everything that's not the one that you're trying to remove. Yeah, it's shorter to do this than the alternative. So instead of having to find the key, all we're doing is we're going through every single book in the list, and whichever one, if there is one that equals this, it will not be returned in the filter. Only the ones that don't equal the book that you're trying to remove will be returned by the filter. So yeah, so now once we have updated the books, we are going to set books. Actually, let me get rid of this curly brace because this is a anonymous inline function. And we'll set books to updated books, and I'm just gonna copy pasta this line right here because it's basically the same thing. So now that we have the remove book, we need to pass it to the book list the same way we did before. So on remove book equals remove book. Save that. Really thought that would get formatted, but I guess not. Head back to book list, and inside of the book list, we will pass in on remove book, and it's going to basically take in, yeah, I can duplicate this down. I'll say on remove book, not boop. We don't want to remove the boop. So we'll just get rid of the status because we don't need that. And we can save that. And now we need to actually use it. So inside of the footer, I added this flex so that these buttons are kind of grouped together. Or added this div, I should say. And then on the other side, we're going to have, I'm actually just going to copy this, paste that there. This is going to be variant destructive, which is just going to make it red. And for the on click, it's going to be on remove book. And it's just going to take in the book because it doesn't need the status. And we're not going to disable it because we have the confirmation. So we'll just say remove, save that. And I want to kind of separate them. I don't want the remove to be on the same side. So to do that, in card footer, add class name of flex, and then justify between. There we go. So now we have our remove on one side, all of our things on the other. If I want to remove Philosopher's Stone, do you want to remove this? This is the confirmation that I mentioned earlier at work. Hit OK, and you see it got removed. Now if I remove these two, well, I say if I remove this, spoiler alert, it'll remove both of them. And that is because we're removing things based on the key. These have identical keys. So as far as our app is concerned, they're the same thing. And you could be saying, well, that's not desired behavior. We only want to remove one. To which I will say, no. We actually should not have had those there to begin with. And that is going to be something we address in a little bit when we get back to our table. We're going to add a disabled value to the add button, which will basically it'll compare the each one of the items in the table array with what you already have in your reading list, and if it's already in there, then it'll disable it so that you can't add it to your list unless it's if it's already in there. So I do want to add a state management package because while we can keep going by moving these functions from app as callback functions and allow the state to be modified by child components, it's not as clean as if we had a state manager where the state is decentralized. And don't worry, we're not introducing Redux because I do not like Redux. Well, there's nothing wrong with Redux except it's sometimes a little bit too much. So what we're going to use instead is Zustand. So just yarn add Zustand, hit enter. And now what we need to do is create a store. So inside of my source folder, I'm just going to do store.ts. You actually don't need to define a store. I just prefer to. It's like you can technically have a store in every single one of your files because the Zustand state is basically like scoped at individual stores, individual Zustand stores. But in our case, we are going to treat this as a global store. So that's kind of why I'm doing it this way. So we're going to import create from Zustand. And what we're going to do now is, well, we're actually going to move things around a little bit. So let's go to our book search and let's yoink the book type from here and paste it inside of our Zustand store. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want the types and everything to be kind of centralized where the store is being defined and used. So well, not used. It's going to be used all over the app, but yeah. So so we have our book type in here. Now we're also going to need to create an interface for our book state. And we're also going to create an interface that extends the book state called bookstore. And this is going to have all of our methods. So add book, remove book, move book, and load book from local storage, which you haven't seen yet, but you will see because we're about to use it. So now let's head down and create a new store. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a useStore method, which is going to run create from Zustand with type bookstore. So it's going to take in this interface over here, which includes the book. And in here, we're going to initialize the state values as well as the methods. So books will be initialized as an empty array, and our functions are going to be initialized like so. So let me just space these out a little bit so it's easier to read. And we're going to move all of the current functionality that we have into these function bodies. And all this is doing is when we're running these functions, it's setting this. We're setting the state to whatever the output of the function is. So let's go to app.tsx and actually grab these functions out of here. Let me see. So I believe I can just grab the inside of the three of these. So we're going to just control X that. And in add book, I'm going to paste this in here. And at the end of the add book method, we're going to need to return the books as updated books and get rid of set books because we're not actually setting any books. And because we're not using the use state anymore, now we have to say state.books. So yeah. So now for remove book, let's do the same thing. We come down to remove book, control X that, head back to the store, paste that in there, and say state.books, and then we can get rid of set books. And all we do for this one is, well, actually outside of here, we return state, but inside of the if statement, we will return books equal to updated books. And what this means is if the window is confirmed, if the window confirm dialog thing is set to true, then it'll return the updated books. It'll set the books property as the updated books, which will exit this function. But if this doesn't run, then the state as it is will be returned, meaning nothing happened. So let's do the same thing for move. We will grab this, cut, go back to the store, paste. Same thing in here. We can get rid of set books, and we'll say state.books. And where's the last part? Yeah, we just need to return. Return books as the updated books, like so. And let's see, what else are we missing? Oh, I do need to export the useStore. I don't know why I just thought of that, but export useStore. I think, oh yeah, the local storage. So what this one is this is just letting us grab the stored books from the local storage. So this is doing what we were doing over here. So we're saying, no, I'll just go ahead and grab this. So we'll cut that out of there, and then we will paste that in there. And we're not actually setting the books. Instead, what we're doing is we're running the sets method, which we are getting from the create method. So we're going to set the books to the JSON parsed store books. And otherwise, this is like in the case that there are no books, then we'll just set the books as an empty array. Cool. We can save that. And now let's go ahead and start distributing these across our app. So first thing we'll do is in app.tsx, we're actually not going to use these this way. We're going to remove all of these and the use effect actually. Well, actually we'll keep the use effect because we do need that. And we need to import the functions from the useStore hook. So in order to do that, we'll say useStore just to import it. So don't import it from Zustand, import it from .store. So now we're going to have to destructure const the load books from local storage out of hello. That's supposed to be, oh my gosh, equals useStore state. Cool. So we're going to grab this method from our store, and in our use effect, we're going to run it when load books from local storage first gets imported. So when we get this method, we'll run it, meaning this will run on first load. So now let's actually get rid of the functions that we pass in to these components, because now we don't need to do this because of the fact that all of our, and we can get rid of this this state setter because we're not using it anymore. So because we're no longer using the app to pass down this information, we can, and because we're using the store, we can head to our individual components and do the same thing where we import the functions that we're going to use directly from the Zustand store. And because all the data is going to be stored in the Zustand store, it's all going to be like coalesced in one place. So we can get rid of this passed in properties or props, and we'll do the same thing that we did before. So we'll say const, we're going to grab books and add book from use store, and this is, oh nice, interesting. Use the app for this one. I like that. Okay. State, and let's quickly use the, wait, hello, book is assigned but never used. Oh wait, I also need to import, I need to import book now because we moved that to the store. So we imported the book. Oh, and I remember why we're importing books. So we're importing books because I mentioned earlier that we want to update our button so that if the item already exists, if an item already exists in our list, we don't want to add it. And we're going to use the books, like our current book state, to check that. But for now, let's resolve this error. So let's see, add book. So it's no longer on add book. Instead, it's just add book. And let me double check something before I save this. So yeah. So we are going to have to revisit this probably. Yeah. Well, let me actually fix this real quick. So in our, where am I going? In our store, we have it so that it's setting the new, the data that we're passing in from the new book, which if we do it the way I was about to do it, it's going to completely overwrite. Oh my God, we can't even read that. There we go. So, well, no, that's right. That's right. So this is going to pass in this information. Yeah, this will work. I'm pretty sure. If this doesn't work, then I'll eat my words. And I guess while we're here, let's go ahead and fix that disable issue. So, oh, and we do need to pass this in. No, this is right. This is right. Okay. So, underneath the click handler, we're going to add a disabled equals books dot sum. So sum book, where book of book dot key equals Oh, wait, actually, we can't use book because we're already using book. So we'll say B, I guess, shorthand. So wherever the current books equals to book.key, it will disable the add button for that. So now let's quickly go and resolve the issue in the book list because we're no longer using these functions in this way. So I can actually blast this away. And I am going to copy this. Where did it go? Come on now. Dude. Oh, there it is. I'm going to cut, no, not the whole file, just that. I'm going to copy this over to the book list. And from here, what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of add book. We're going to say remove book and move book. And now I can just replace on move book with that. And I can replace remove book, or excuse me, on remove book with remove book. And I think if I save that, oh, I do need to import use store from the store. And I'm pretty sure I need to import the book. Yeah, that's not imported from the right place. So just get rid of that, paste that there, save, and there we go. So now our Zustand store, I believe, is working. In progress, done, backlog, remove. Sure you want to remove? Yes, done. Okay, cool. Oh, and let me double check something really quick. Percy Jackson. So I'm going to add the lightning thief, and because I added it, now it's disabled. So I can't add it again. So we fixed that issue. So real quick, before we move on to like styling this, I do want to clean up some stuff real quick. So this list type over here, this is technically of the book, of the book status type, not string. So we paste that in there like that because we want the list type to always be one of these three, right? So there's that piece. And then if we head back to our book search, we want to add a conditional rendering for the table because it doesn't really make any sense if I refresh. It doesn't make any sense to have like the table show up when there's nothing in there. So let's head down to this this table component, and I'm going to wrap this in a ternary operator. So we're going to say query dot length is greater than 0. So assuming that you've actually, dude, what in the world? Greater than 0. So assuming that you actually typed something in there. And where is my ampersand? There it is. Results dot length is greater than 0. And I know there's better ways to do this, but this is just like for demonstration purposes. I encourage you to do this the correct way. This is just like me doing this for y'all to get an idea of what I'm talking about. So we paste the table in there, and then otherwise we're just gonna pass in a div with a flex box. No, not divide. What? Div dot flex. Okay, it does not like that. We have to open a parentheses, I think. Div dot flex. There we go. Dot max h60. Item center. Justify center. Padding of 16. And in here, we'll just pass in a paragraph that says start your search. There you go. So now it won't show the table unless there's a table there, or unless there's stuff for the table to actually render. So if I say what's that one with Katniss Everdeen? Hunger Games. There we go. Now we actually have stuff, and I'm gonna go ahead and add the Hunger Games. And now we want to get into the last part of the modification of the state or of the list, which is reordering them. So we first have to add a new state function to our Zustand store, and we're going to call that reorder books. It's going to take in a list type, the start index, which is the index of the array item when you begin or begin it before, good Lord, before it gets reordered. Sorry, I'm stuttering. Before it gets reordered, and then the end index, which is where it is, like what its index will be after it's done reordering. So let's go ahead and add, underneath move book, we'll add the reordered books function down there. And the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to create a new array that filters through the current state's books so that it only includes the books that match the filter type. So yeah, so we're state books.filter, and then we're just going to check the status and return the books that are the same as the list type that's passed in. Next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to remove the book that corresponds with the start index from the filtered books array. So we remove that reordered book from the filtered books array. And then we're going to want to insert that reordered book back into the filtered books at the end index. So wherever it is that we're finishing off this reordering process, that's where we're going to insert that new reordered book. Lastly, we're going to, as we did before, where we created the update books arrays, we're going to create update books. And to do this, we're just going to map through the existing books array, and then wherever the book status is equal to the list type that we're passing in, then we will replace it with the next book from the filtered books. Otherwise, we will just return the book as is. And lastly, we'll just go ahead and copy paste that local storage setter and return those updated books. So go ahead and save that. And we seem to have an issue. Let me just see what's going on. Local books from local storage. Oh, that is because we didn't add a comma there, I think. Yep, there we go. Okay, so now let's go ahead and use this thing in our book list component. And before we get started with this, we need to install two packages. So we need to install React Beautiful-DnD, which is the drag and drop package that we're going to be using for reordering our lists. And we also need to add the types. So -d, excuse me, types / React Beautiful-DnD. Okay. And once you have those installed, there is something that we have to do before we can use them. As of React 18, the droppable function in React Beautiful-DnD doesn't work with strict mode. So in order to get it to work, there's like this workaround that I was able to find until Atlassian decides to solve that particular issue. This is going to be the way that we do it so that we don't compromise React strict mode. So we're just going to create a new file or a new component, call it strict mode droppable.tsx, and I'm just going to paste this in here. I'm going to probably paste this this link to this Medium article, explaining how this works, because this is not my code. I lifted this from another GitHub answer, and it listed this as a reference. So this is how we get it to work with React strict mode. So go ahead and do this first. Pause, get it copied. Then once you're done with that, we can head back to the book list component. And there are a few steps. I did struggle to figure out like how to best, explain this next part. And because to be honest, it is a little bit more of an advanced use case. But what I figured we'd do is start off with like kind of the end goal, right? Or the end result. So we want to be able to drag these items and have it reorder the books at the end of the drag operation, right? So to do that, just add this function called onDragEnd. I did pre-write this because this is really a one-time use case for this project. So We're not going to go into too much detail on it. But in essence, what this is doing is whenever an item is dropped, or at the end of the drop event, what's going to happen is the first thing is the result that is passed here is going to check whether or not the thing that was dropped, whether or not it was dropped in a destination that is valid. If it doesn't, so if result.destination is false, meaning like if I drag and drop the thing outside of its like designated drop area, then it'll just exit the function. Assuming that's not the case, then it'll first get the source index or the starting index of the item that was dropped. Then it'll get the destination index. So this is part of like React-DnD's internal working. So it has the information on where it was dropped relative to the items in the array. And after that, it'll grab the list type from the thing that was dropped. So we're going to pass in the droppable ID. We're going to drop in the droppable ID is the actual ID that's passed to the context of the drag drop area. And because all of our drag drop areas are going to be segmented by the list type, that means that the droppable ID is the list type. And that'll make a little bit more sense once we get down to the context part of this. Lastly, we're going to reorder the books based on the list type, the source index, and the destination index. So this is the reordered books function that we had defined in our store, which we'll go ahead and import as such. So now we actually need to use this on drag end. And what we're going to do, because we're only making the backlog and the in progress arrays drag and droppable, what we'll do is we have to create these, they're called drag drop contexts. This is also from the React-DnD package. So right underneath the heading for the my reading list heading, we'll just add these drag drop context wrappers. So we'll wrap drag drop context. There we go. So went ahead and imported it. I think it imported it. Did it not? Oh no, it did. It did. Yeah, there we go. I just had my JSX wrong. In this drag drop context, that's where we pass in that add on drag end. And this Lord, I cannot speak. This drag drop context, this is going to use the list type that is provided in the. Well, we're going to add it in a second, but you'll see where that list type comes in from. So let's go ahead and add another drag drop context around. We added this to the in progress, and now we need to add it to the backlog. So there we go. And I'm not going to add drag droppability to the done, because it doesn't really make any sense. Because the whole idea behind the drag dropping is to reorder the list based on priority. But if you've already finished, if you've already done, or you're done with your reading list, then it doesn't really make any sense to be able to reorganize based on priority, because all those things are done. So we're just going to leave this one as is. So now we actually have to create a draggable book list. So these are, it's essentially going to replace what's over here. And this is where we're going to pass in that that list type parameter and make it the droppable ID. So I am just going to paste this function in here. Go ahead and pause and copy this over. I'll wait. And when you're done, well, just make sure to import these. So this is from the strict mode droppable that we created earlier. And we are missing a few imports. We need to import our draggable like so. And we also need to import our drop result like so. Cool. Now, what this book list, this render draggable book list is doing, first and foremost, we're passing in the list type to this render draggable book list function. So this is going to replace these down here in a second. And the first thing that it's doing is it's filtering the books by the list type, right? So for example, if we have the in progress books, we want to filter those out. If we have the backlog books, we want to filter those out. The next thing that it's going to do, this is going to be hard for me to explain, but I'm going to try to do my best. So it's going to first define a drop zone for the items that match that particular ID. And this is where that droppable ID gets matched with the list type. So that means that the in progress status items are going to have their own droppable context, and this is where this is like that going to be that valid area where they can get dropped. And that that function actually returns a object called, which we're going to define as provided, that contains props in a ref that need to be applied to the component as a whole. And they'll, oh, gosh, my IntelliSense is going crazy. And they'll be applied at this first div. So this div is going to represent the entire droppable area, this thing right here. So this represents the area where we can drag and drop things. Inside of there, we want to render out those individual items. So we'll say filtered books.map, and then inside of here, we'll define every individual draggable item. So each one of the filtered books, meaning the books that match the list type that was passed in here, will have their own draggable component, which will take in the book key, as well as, and that'll constitute the draggable ID as well. And this is going to return a provided object for the draggable object. What we're going to do here is we're going to then create a div that is going to contain all of the functionality that's provided by the draggable object. And we're talking about like things like the ref for implementing the DnD draggable functionality and any of the additional props that it needs to actually work. And then inside of that, we have one more div, which is going to constitute the drag handle. So the thing that you actually grab to drag. And in our case, we're going to make the drag handle be the entire thing. So anywhere that you click on the thing, you can click and drag it, and that will be a valid drag handle. So I hope that made sense. If not, I would recommend looking a little bit more at React-DnD's docs. I'm not too great at it, so sorry if I like butchered that explanation, but tried my best. So now let's go ahead and put this in action. So under the in progress, we can actually replace this with our render draggable book list function and pass in the list type of in progress. And we can actually do the same thing with the backlog. So we'll just paste that there, and then we'll change this to back, if I can spell, backlog. Okay. And we don't have to do anything for the last one because the last one will not be changed. So we can save, and now, at long last, I can click this item, I can drag it, and it'll update its position. If I refresh, actually, let me check that again. Yep, if I refresh, it'll persist that order. And there we go. We now have completed our, well, basically everything pertaining to, I guess, CRUD operations within the context of this, this app. So what we're going to do next is add the components that we need to just clean up the layout and implement dark mode. So first thing we want to do is, well, I'm actually going to paste some code from my other tutorials, and I will link the tutorials that I'm referencing in the description. I'm going to see if I can like put up cards, but if I can't, then I'll just I'll add like the link to the timestamp. So if you haven't followed my previous tutorials and don't have that code, I would recommend going and checking out just that part of the tutorial. Otherwise, you can pause and just copy whatever it is that I paste in here. So first one I'm going to add is I'm going to add a hooks folder to my source folder real quick. And I'm going to first add the use theme.ts hook. And this hook, for the quick and dirty explanation, all it does is it allows us to use the user's preferences, or whether or not the user has visited and has changed the dark mode setting in the past. This will allow us to access the user settings, so their like preferred dark mode setting if they have it on their browser, or if they visited the site before, then it'll actually store that value in the local storage so that the next time they come, their settings are saved. So go ahead and copy this over if you want to, or you can go to the other tutorial and follow this part. So I'm just gonna pause here for a second, and then I'm gonna scroll and pause here for a second. I'm trying not to I'm trying to be better about my zoom level because someone had pointed out previously that I tend to zoom too far in my tutorials. So once you get that done, you want to head over to your components folder again, and we're going to create a new component called navbar.tsx. And inside of the navbar, we're going to add two components. We're first going to add the theme toggle. The theme toggle is going to use the use theme hook, so we'll import it like so. And it's also going to use these two icons, which I'll import in a second. The other thing that we want to paste is the actual navbar, which will use the theme toggle button. So I'm going to copy and paste that with the description of it. Oh gosh, there we go. Yeah, so I'm going to pause at the top, let you copy all that down. And now I'm going to pause over here so you can copy all that down. And like I said, all of this code is the same as what we've done in the previous tutorial. I just need to update the icons real quick. So let me just import those. So those are coming from the React icons package, which I conveniently don't have installed. So let me go ahead and install that. Yarn add React icons. This is a phenomenal package. I think it consolidates all the popular icon packages. Just hide my terminal. There we go. So we can save that. And the last thing we want to do is we actually want to use this this navbar in our layout component. So you'll recognize this from the build your own UI components library tutorial. So I'm going to add a new file, call it layout.tsx, and this is going to be a wrapper for our entire application. This is going to require us to import the navbar like so. Save that, and go ahead and pause and copy this over if you don't already have this code. And now we can actually go back to our app and wrap our entire application with that. So let me first find where that is. Yep, there it is. So instead of this container, I'm going to replace this with layout, and we'll import that from .components/layout. Save that, and ooh, yeah, baby. Because I already have dark mode enabled, automatically defaulted to dark mode, like I said. And there we go. We have our light mode and our dark mode. A few little links that I like to add in there. So head back to the booksearch.tsx component, because now it's time for us to update the aesthetics of our table. Because after adding that dark mode, well, it really does look atrocious. So at this top div, replace this padding with this negative margin and this X overflow. Let me just scroll back up over here. Cool. Next thing we want to do is this entire thing, so all the contents of this div, we're going to wrap it in another div. So we'll just Control X, div, paste all that back in there. And then for this div up at the top, we're going to add the following styles. And these are just going to add a divider when it's a certain width, and make sure that divider has some nice little dark mode aesthetic. So there you go. Some nice little lines and a clean little divider. After that, we actually want to add a wrapper around the input and the button, because when we resize, oh, I totally thought that would work. There we go. When we resize this, we want to have our like small screen version of this. We want it to look a little bit neater. We want that like that input box up top and the button to like be the same width and so forth and so on. So let's go ahead and add a little something to that, clean that up. So that button and well, I guess actually we can actually get rid of this because we don't need this anymore. The results information. We're going to replace this in a second. So get rid of, well, tell you what, we'll just comment that out for now because we are going to replace it with something else. So we're going to take the button and the input. We're going to wrap these in a div. And that div that we're wrapping them in will contain a flex box like so. And inside of that first div, the one that has the input, we're going to add a relative width full to the small, I should have replaced the whole thing, to the small max width. And this will make sure that like when it's at the small breakpoint or larger, it will have a maximum width. But up until that point, meaning like when it's still on mobile, it will have full width. So we save that, and it looks something like this. Once I can figure out how to, geez. I don't know why Windows is so picky with this. Come on. Does not want to cooperate. Okay, maybe I'll try doing it from my console. There we go. So you see, so now they're nice and centered. We do want the button to be to have a maximum width when it's at this kind of like small screen size. So up at the button, we will add the following class name. So just go ahead and pause and copy this over. There you go. So now the button is at full width when it's at the mobile sizing, but then bigger than mobile sizing, it sits next to the input box. And then lastly, we want to change up the way the isLoading looks, because currently we have it say searching or search, but we want to add a nice little, like if I come in here and say, if I search, I want to have a nice little like loading spinner. So what we're going to do there is, I'm just going to paste this in here. Instead of just the searching text, I'm going to pass in this, this icon from our React icons package, which I will go ahead and import up at the top. So to the top of the file, I guess underneath the store. Yeah, there we go. So that's from the simple icons package. We save that. And now when you search, Harry Potter. And now when you search, you get that nice little loading spinner. Now we do want to, we do want to change the styles, excuse me. We want to change up the styles on the container for this table. Because personally, I don't like the way this scroll bar looks. I prefer a cleaner, simpler look. So you're going to want to grab these styles. These styles, I'm not going to take credit for them. This is from the pre-line package. Or not package. Is it a package? It's a component library that uses Tailwind. So they have this nice little like scrolling or scroll bar classes that you can grab. I'll link them. I'll link the link at the timestamp in the description below where you can find these same styles. So once you save, now you'll see you have this nice little slim, clean looking scroll bar that I'm pretty sure is compatible with other operating systems, but I do not have a Mac, so I can't verify that myself. So once you get that done, the other thing we want to do is to make this responsiveness a little bit better. I wish I could, there we go. So right now, when this screen is like super small, I don't really want to have it be side scrollable. I think that's just ugly. I think if you're in a situation where you have a table on a mobile view, then you should collapse some of the columns. And I don't think the year and the page count are necessary on the mobile view. So to do that, just head down to the table heads. Actually, I don't know why I added these paddings in here. I think I can get rid of these. So we'll just remove these. And for the year and the page count, we're going to add a hidden class. So this will be hidden until it's at the small breakpoint. Then it'll be represented as a table cell. So when we save, so we also need to do that down here where the table cells show up as well. So let's see, it was this one and this one. Paste those there, and there we go. So now you'll see that when you're at the smaller size, you only see the title, the author, and the add button. So we're almost done with the table restyling. Couple more things we want to do. In the table body, let's just add a overflow Y. That way, like it's always like this is going to come in handy when you have shorter screen sizes, like on a mobile device. It'll just, it'll keep it nice and constrained because we're going to add a drawer later. The other thing we want to do is down in this start your search thing. So if I remove the content over here, I kind of want this to look a little bit cleaner. So what we'll do in that case is for this p tag, we'll just add some classes. So class name, text gray 600 in light mode, and then dark mode, it'll be text gray 400, I guess. And then last thing we want to do is actually move those results down here. So we had commented that out earlier. I'm just going to go ahead and cut this. And then I want to say it was right underneath this div. We'll paste that in there. Whoops. Uncomment that out. And replace some of these styles. So the outer div, instead of the margin top 2, we're going to add this flex container styling. Then inside of it, we're actually going to do a little bit of changing, a little bit of cleanup, if you will. So we'll add a div in here, and then inside there, we'll add a p tag with small text, text gray 600, and when it's dark, we'll add text gray of 400. Oh, not 499. There we go. And inside here, we'll paste back that total results. And now we'll just do a quick little modification to how the start index and the end index show up. I don't like it when it's just like standard. So like if I save and I run this, see, like I want to kind of bold those numbers just because it kind of looks tacky the way it is right now. So we'll say, oh, and then we also want to add a, we also want to change the total results to be a ternary operator. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a quick replace like so. So you'll see the total results is now a ternary operator, and we have it showing. There's a span where the font changes to semi-bold. So you see the 1 out of 100 really stands out a little bit more out of that. And this actually should be showing nothing. There we go. So 0 results. So if there's nothing, then it's 0 results. So now if we look up Harry Potter, then searching. There we go. So there's our results. So I think we have one more thing to do, which is to really spruce up these buttons down here because they look terrible. So we already have our disabled styling, but we need to add a little bit more pizzazz over here. So let's say this div down to here. We'll cut that and paste it inside of that div that we created earlier. Save that, and now, yeah, looks a little bit nicer. Let's just clean some of this up. So we'll get rid of this margin top nonsense over here. So we'll just say inline, flex, gap, x2, save that. And I believe we can actually get rid of this page just because it's not super necessary. So get rid of that. Now, last thing we have to do is add some icons. So we're going to be importing, let's see, I think these are from the SL React Icons package. So import these left and right arrows, copy those, and back down here, we'll replace the previous and next buttons with those icons. And we are going to add class names, class name of size 4. Oh gosh. And this is the new, this is part of Tailwind's new latest version. So instead of having to type H4, W4, I can just type size 4 once. There we go. So we save those. And wow, that is backwards. So let's replace those. So this is supposed to be left, and this is supposed to be hello, right. Save, there we go. So now let's go and clean up the list a little bit. get rid of this import React statement at the top. And we're going to need a few icons. So I'm going to grab these and paste them underneath here. So we're going to need those icons from the React Icons GI package. And we're also going to need a new thing from the Shadcn package, which is the tooltip, because we want to have it where when you hover over these buttons, we want it to tell you what they do, because we're about to replace all these buttons with icons. So icons, I think, are a little bit more mobile friendly, and they're a little bit more, require a little bit more reading, which is ironic, But we're going to need the tooltip package. So that way, when we hover over it, it tells you what it does. And to do that, we are going to copy this CLI statement, paste it. Oh, there we go. Hit enter. And then once that imports, we will copy over these import statements. And I don't know why this is taking so long, but while it does what it does, we're gonna, there we go. Okay, it's good. So we'll scroll down to, where's it? Card. There we go. And let me actually hide the terminal because that's in my way. So what we're going to need to do first, honestly, before I start cleaning this up, is I want to style up these cards a little bit more because they kind of look like trash. We'll add in these classes. So what this is going to do is this is going to reset the border rounding, or the border radius, excuse me. And it's going to make it so that the first item in the list, or the first item in an array, has a margin top of 0. And then it's also going to have a, the first item is also going to have a rounded top, or a border radius on the top side. And the last item in the array is going to have a border radius applied to the bottom side. So when we save that, you'll see that it looks like they're rounded on both top and bottom, but that's because these are not technically list items. If I go down to the done section, you'll see that those styles get applied here. And that's the desired behavior, right? Because these are meant to be draggable things, so it makes sense for them to have rounded corners top and bottom, but these are not. These are individual, these are items in a list that is not meant to be draggable. So because they're connected, we kind of wanted them to have those square corners at the bottom. Now let's go ahead and start adding in these tooltips and these icons. So under the, let's see, how do we want to do this? So we want to add a tooltip to every single one of the buttons. So it'll look something like this, right? Inside the card footer, around the first button, we'll say tooltip. Well, you know what? We're going to, here, I'll create them first, and then we'll apply them as wrappers. So the next one we're going to do is tooltip trigger. Oh gosh. Tooltip trigger. And we're going to set the tooltip trigger as child. And what this will do is it'll make it so that whatever its child will be essentially replacing this element. And I'll show you what that looks like in a second. The next thing that we're going to want to do underneath the trigger is we're going to want to add the actual tooltip content. So we'll say tooltip content, like that. And I guess I'll put change me in here because we're going to use this as a wrapper. So to apply these as wrappers, I'm going to highlight these two and copy, or sorry, highlight these two and then click, highlight, or control click highlight these two. So now I have both of these highlighted. Control X, so now I have two cursors. And then around each one of the buttons, I'm going to control click, paste. And then underneath every single one of the buttons, we're going to do the same exact thing. Or around, excuse me, every single one of the buttons. So control click, paste. Same thing down here, control click, or I keep saying control click when I'm not doing that. Bro, stop IntelliSense. Okay, I swear it needs a delay. It keeps like shoving its pop-up in my face while I'm trying to click on things. Control click, paste. And we save, but it's not gonna work. And the reason it's not gonna work is because in order for the tooltip to actually be used, we need to apply the tooltip provider around anything that is going to be using a tooltip. I think that I am so lazy, so I'm just going to copy this whole import statement. I'm going to remove the tooltip provider from this component, and instead, under app, I'm going to apply it there. So I'm going to re-import these. And I'm just going to apply it around the book list because that's the only place that we're going to use it. But if you end up using the tooltips in other parts of the app, you might want to move it around. Well, yeah, this is fine for our purposes. Like I said, it goes around everything that you wrap it around. In our case, we're only using it around the book list. There you go. So now that error is gone. So you'll see tooltip change me, tooltip done, and the tooltip around remove. So let's just go and actually add some real content around the tooltips. And so, sorry, I lost my train of thought. So under remove, we'll just say, I don't know, delete from my reading list. Under the in progress, we'll say mark as currently reading. Underneath this one, we'll say, instead of backlog is kind of ugly, so we'll say mark as for later. And then down here at the done, we'll say mark as done. Save that. So now, highlight over in progress, we'll say now it's in progress. So I do want to get rid of the text in between these, and I'm just going to paste in these icons. So around the delete, because I'm sassy, I'm going to add the burning book icon. So there you go. It's just going to burn that thing away. Very Genghis Khan like. So we save that one. This one's just the book with a mark. A bookmark. And then we'll add, I don't know, the icon that made sense for the backlog, like for the later, was like a book pile. So like this is like the books, the stack of books that you're about to read. And then what made sense to me in terms of like what's already been read is a bookshelf, because I feel like if you're planning on reading things that like are for later, you're just gonna have them in a stack. And if they're like things that you're done with, you're just gonna, well, it was nicer than putting it in the waste bin. And besides, the waste bin sounds like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should put a library or something. I didn't really think about it too much, but yeah. So if you think of better icons, go for it. So last thing is these headers look like garbage. So let's clean those up a little bit. Yeah. So on these headers, I'm just gonna replace the styles for them like this. So I'm just gonna copy or highlight this, Control D a few times, and then paste in these styles. So I don't know, they're just a little bit nicer. And I want to also, because I believe in like the intuitive part of like UI development, like where, like if you highlight over this, or not this, sorry, but if you like these icons, they're very like subjective, right? Like I just explained what they are to you, but you know, unless the person hovers over them and looks at the tooltip at first glance, you don't really know what they are. So I want to also add these bookmarks next to their respective headers, I guess. So for the first header, which is the in progress, I'm gonna actually change in progress to currently reading. And we added the icon for the bookmarklet over there. The next one is for later. And for later, I actually did make the icon a little bit bigger because it's a weird icon. So, hello. Oh, I don't have anything in that section. Let me move something there. Okay, there we go, for later. So that was weird. I had a brain fart for a second. Because of the way the icon is structured, it was like weird when it was a little smaller. So I did make that one a little bit bigger. Then the last one is done. It's still done. For this one, again, it was a little bit weird, so I had to like add some padding to the bottom to make it look in line with everything else. So there we go. So those are our icons. So I think that's it for our list. So let's just try to add some more things in here. So we'll say, actually, you know what? I'll go ahead and add some like placeholder stuff, because I did kind of do that in my own implementation, and I figured I'd keep consistent with that. So in my, and you can do this yourself if you want, in my store, or in your store if you want, I'm just going to paste in these initial books. It's not assignable to type string. I'm wondering why it's doing that. What did I? Oh, I'm a silly goose. I made the publish year a string. It's supposed to be a number and number of pages that a string. Yo, I'm tripping. These are supposed to be numbers. Well, I guess that whoa, cannot find number. Oh, okay. We're doing all kinds of tripping. Y'all gonna have to forgive me. The brain fog is killing me. Okay, there we go. So now I'll down in my load books from local storage, instead of initializing my books as an empty array, I'll initialize them as initial books, which is what I just added in there. So there it is if you guys want to actually copy it. Just a bunch of pre-written. These are all accurate to the API. I just pulled them and saved them earlier. So just some like sample data. So now if I go and I like clear out my local storage and refresh real quick, there you go. We have all those default, the initial books, the default store, I guess you'd say. So let's see. I believe that is it. I just wanted to play around with these. So you can't drag these around, but you come over here. These tooltips are all working. We'll mark the Return of the King is currently reading. Psych, the Return of the King is actually not currently reading. We're going to move it back to for later. And, mess around with the reordering. Everything is looking real nice and snazzy. So there is a new update to the Shadcn package that I wanted to incorporate in this tutorial, and that is the new drawer component. Specifically, he has this new like responsive drawer dialog that I believe I showed in the demo earlier. So if I open up this dialog and I resize, you'll see it pops up as a drawer, which is super nice. Originally, I had done this manually with like headless UI, and oh my gosh, it was so much Tailwind and so much extra stuff. But this is like, since we're already using Shadcn, might as well benefit from it. You know what I'm saying? That's the beauty of these components. Just get to grab them, use them, do what you got to do with them. All right. So let's go ahead and use the CLI to import these. So we'll go to there it is. So grab that snippet, go back to my VS Code, open my terminal, paste that in there, wait for it to install. Bada bing, bada boom. And I am just gonna, I hit up to go into my history. So I'm just gonna do dialog so that I can import dialog as well, because I'm 99% sure it's that is the command. Yeah. So in this drawer example, I'm actually gonna grab, wait, what? Oh, that's right. Okay. Sorry, I was confused with the code. So I'm gonna grab this, and in my book search, underneath my book search component, I'm just gonna paste this down in here, and I'm gonna get rid of the profile form because we don't actually want that. And let's see, I'm gonna get rid of the footer because we don't really need that. We're gonna need that eventually, but not for now. And then we also got rid of the profile form. What else? So we have drawer content. Oh, so yikes, I don't know what I just did. So in here, we're going to be using this as kind of like a wrapper component. So we're going to pass in a children array down here. And here I'll say search. I don't know, I'll do, for edit profile, I'll just do add a new book. And the way this one's going to work is like it's going to query. It's going to use this hook, which I had to dig through Shadcn's code to find. It's going to use that hook. Actually, let me go ahead and paste that hook in here. So say use media query.ts. And I'm just going to find it and paste it real quick. Okay, so go ahead and copy and paste that. This is from his source code. I can find the link in his GitHub, and I don't know if it's a dude, actually, at their GitHub. I don't know if it's a dude or a lady or not. So Shadcn, whoever Shadcn is, this is from their Git repo. So you can find it here on your own, or I'll try to find it and link it in in the description. So you're going to need this hook, and all it's going to do is, whoa, oh, wrong file. There we go. All it's going to do is just basically figure out like, hey, am I at the 768 pixel breakpoint, which is what we're calling a desktop. So if it is desktop, then we're going to render a dialog. If it's not desktop, then we're going to render the drawer. So let me just finish this up real quick. So we're gonna, yeah, we don't want this dialog form thing. We're just gonna say children go here, which we need to pass in actually, and we're gonna rename this from drawer dialog demo to just search dialog. And in this one, oh gosh, I hate when it's defined as a function. Just something that irks me. One of my pet peeves, you know. There we go. I like using arrow functions because they're harder for me to type. And inside of our props, we'll pass in the children, which will be of type children react node. So I think, yeah, I don't like this. I don't like what he did here, so I'm going to change this to max width large, or sorry, X large, and I think that's fine. Dialog trigger is fine, and let me just double check something else. Yeah, I think that's good. So now I can save this. I think I can save it. Yeah, I do need to get rid of this extra button, and I'm not using CN, so I'm going to get rid of that. And then for use media query, I didn't name it that way. I don't know why Shadcn names files that way. So I'm just gonna say use media query. I don't like kebab case. I don't know why people use that. It is what it is though. So, well, I'll get rid of drawer close, but I'll keep drawer footer because I will need that in a second later. And I'll explain why once we get to that point. So we're going to use the search dialog actually as a replacement for where it is currently in the app. So I'm going to get rid of the book search from the app.tsx, and that includes over there. And then I'm going to add it to, well, let me save first. And also let me hide my terminal. It's getting in my way. And I'm going to head back to book list. And inside of book list, where should I add this? Hold on. Let me think for a second. So we're going to actually add this as a button somewhere. Dude, I have too much stuff in here. But yeah, there we go. So we're going to add this next to our my reading list heading. And we're just going to say this is, it's going to be a div, or a div with a height of full. So height of 100%. And in here, we're going to import that search dialog, which I didn't even export. Silly me. Export. There we go. So say search dialog. Cool. And then remember how we said we're going to render children in there. So we're going to pass in the book search table. And this is so that way we don't have the table sitting inside of our UI all the time. This way, it's hidden inside of a dialog, which is conveniently something that resizes into this drawer, which I think is super nice. So now we look up Harry Potter, search, results, close, and we can have a good time. No big deal. So yeah, it's just something to add a little bit more responsiveness. I think it makes for a better UX because you don't always need that table up there. Really, you want people to like immediately go to their list, and then if they want to add a new book, well, there you go. Nice thing is, because it's mobile responsive, let's go to the iPhone SE. We add a new book. I don't know. I just love this UI so much. So we say Harry Potter, and there we go. Yeah. So that's it for that. Oh wait, actually, that is not it for that. Actually, we need to add some stuff. So just a little bit of spacing because I don't like having the button underneath it when it doesn't need to be. So when it's like this big, it doesn't make sense for it to be right underneath it. So we're just gonna add a div real quick, div wrapper, which will look like that. And we'll copy and paste this content in here. So now when we save it, the button appears on the same line, but on mobile, they stack vertically. All right, so we're in the final stretch. Now let's just do a few tweaks to our styles. So I do want to check my layout real quick. And because we're using CSS variables provided by Shadcn, we don't need like to have this background white and dark background gray. On top of that, like I don't want to, I don't know, it's this pastel blue and then these colors over here, they don't really match. So what I want to do, well, they do match, but they, it makes it seem like the valid drop area for this is literally any part of the site. And what I want to do is I want to make the entire site match this dark blue color or dark slate color. And then I want to have each one of these drop areas have its own little like sequestered box. So I'm going to replace these styles with the background provided by this Shadcn theme. So when we save, you'll see that nice deep blue background. And I want to make the nav bar also fit the style. So I'm going to head into the nav bar and I'm going to hide this because it's taking up too much space. And then this also, because of these, because of how everything's kind of consolidated in the theming styles and those in the index CSS, it makes it a lot easier to like read and stuff. So like when I replace these, you'll see, wow, it's a lot less styles. That's because the background, the background for the background. I don't know why Shadcn chose this naming convention. This encapsulates both dark mode and light mode. So when I hit save, there we go. I do also need to change the links below. So we're going to change the first link to look like this. So because I originally wrote this nav bar before the new Tailwind update, but because I'm using height of 10, width of 10, I can just change these to size of 10, and then I can use the text variables that come with Shadcn. So paste that there. So all I have to do is text primary, size 10, P10. Looks, or not P10, sorry, size 10, P2. And I'm going to do the same thing down below for these icons. So it's just nice having to write like less styles and stuff, kind of standardize. It's not always the best. I tend to prefer writing my own like light mode and dark mode everywhere, but that's because I have, I'm always refactoring and I'm always reusing code. So it's nice to have to like not have to untangle everything in order to use it. But that's just my preference. So let's head down to the theme toggle, update these styles real quick. So replace these with that, save, man, there we go. Dark mode is working just fine. So now we can head to, I believe it's the search. We need to do some updates over here. So these are going to be quick. We just head down to the first div. Where is it? Oh gosh, such a big file. Or not the first div, sorry, the second div. And we're going to replace it. We're going to replace these styles with these. So that way we leverage those variables. So we're using the muted divider instead of the colors that I had chosen myself. And we're going to do a similar thing with the, wherever the total results are. There they are. So yeah, we'll replace this outer one like so. So you'll see it just looks a lot cleaner, a lot neater. And then the last thing we'll do is we'll head into the book list component. We'll go down to the, sorry by the way if I keep sounding like I'm smacking my lips. I had bronchitis, or I have bronchitis, which is also why I'm like coughing and sound like I'm breathing from a food processor. That made no sense. Yeah. So I have to keep that in my, I have to keep that cough drop. Otherwise I'll be coughing my entire lungs out all over the keyboard. So that is no bueno. We don't want that. So let's see. I think I can just go down to these headings over here. Where are they? This first heading. We're going to add these styles over here. Oh, hello. There we go. Save that. Looks a lot nicer if I do say so myself. Actually, no, wait, wrong one. That was supposed to be around these right here. Yeah, sorry. So I'm just gonna hit Control D twice, paste those there, save, and I think one last thing we got to do. Oh, actually, we actually got to do this. So I realize it's kind of silly for me to put these divs in here like this. So what I'm actually going to do, or sorry, these headers in here. So I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that, because if there's nothing in here, then they won't even show up. So I'm going to cut these headers and paste them outside of their the drag drop contexts. So, oops, cut that, paste that there, and then we're going to replace this ternary operator over here, excuse me, with this div that will contain well, I'll just show you. So it's like a little drop zone looking area with a lighter color. So we're going to do that for both of the drag droppable areas. So both of the places that have a drag drop context, which will include the backlog. Save that. So now when you drag and drop these, you can kind of tell like where their valid areas are and where their valid areas aren't. And then the last thing is we do need to clean up the way the done one looks. So let's get that header out of here. So we'll cut that, paste that outside, and then we'll replace the this ternary operator with a ternary operator that'll contain a fallback. So the reason I did it that way is because before, when we deleted something and it wasn't there, it would just be empty, right? But now, let's say we move this from arc later, we'll have a nice little message saying some Ben Franklin quotes. Rolling Stone gathers no moss, encouraging us to read. Let's say we finish all of our things that are in the future, says, look before, or you'll find yourself behind, and so forth and so on. So yeah, just a nice little thing to give your UX a little bit more of that, that juice, that spark, that pizzazz, you know what I'm saying? Okay, so just final touches that we want to do, just to clean everything up for a last time, is let's head to our store real quick. So nope. Why am I looking up use store? It's just store. So inside of our store, where we have our add book function, I don't want to be adding all the contents of the new book. Instead, I just want to paste in this object like that so that it grabs only the things that we want to save. And down under the status, it'll take whatever the status that's passed in from the add button, because let's say you want to have a drop down and you want to add a add to current reading or add to backlog or add to done. This will be a little bit more future proof so that you can add that functionality in later. So save that. Let's also head to our search function. Sorry, our search component. Wait, why is this saying weird? Okay, I don't think I changed anything there, so I think we're good. So let's go back to our search. Now, for our search, I ran into this issue earlier where when I was on mobile, the scrolling for the what do you call it? I'm struggling here. The drawer thing. It was really weird on mobile. It's different. Like it looks different here than it does on mobile devices. And that's why I encourage people to deploy their sites, is because even if you check out what it would look like on mobile when you're on Windows Chrome, that's ultimately going to look different than whatever the mobile browser is, right? Because it's actually different software. So it helps to kind of be able to see it in production. So what we're going to do in that vein is we're actually going to head down to the search dialog, and I'm going to grab this content and these state values, and I'm going to cut them, and I'm going to move them to the actual drawer component. So inside of our drawer, right before our return statement, I'm going to paste those in there like so. And I'm also going to do some splitting things up a little bit, right? So we want to kind of segment everything based on their respective areas. So we know that this is the search input. So I'm going to cut this div, the flex call div. I'm going to say const. Well, I should do this before the return statement. We'll say const search input. And this is going to consist of the input dialog, the input button, the input component and the button. Paste that there. There's also the search results, which is going to comprise of basically the contents of this scroll area. So we'll cut this div like so, and we'll come back up to the top and say const search results equals open parentheses, and then paste those in there. Don't save yet, because if you save, you're gonna like destroy everything underneath your return section. Oh, and before I save this, actually, let's quickly in our add area, because we don't need to do this anymore, we can actually just pass in that. So it'll just pass in the properties that are, or the parameters, the properties of the book object, excuse me, as well as the status, and then the store function will take care of actually persisting it as it should be. That way this code is a little bit more manageable. And this way you can add your menu button if you want. So you can have like a drop down when you add a new book, so you can choose like what you want to put there instead. We're also going to change this add to have the same GI book pile component that we used for the for later icon. And the reason for that is just consistency. That way when someone wants to add a new book, instead of them having to see the word add, they actually see an icon button. I'm also going to change the variant to secondary to make it a little bit more consistent. So also link doesn't really make any sense for that kind of component. Last thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to separate the pagination. So we're going to say const search pagination equals parentheses, and this is going to consist of this last flex box over here. So flex call, we can cut that, and we actually, I don't think we need the rest of these styles, but I'm not going to get rid of them yet. Let me just double check something. So paste that there, and now, yeah, so now we can, in our is desktop, instead of the children, we're going to pass in the, well, I'll tell you what, inside of the header, we're going to pass in the search input, right? So the input, the text input as well as the button will go in the header. And then inside the children, this is where we'll do the, well, hello. This is where we'll do the search results. Cool. And the last thing we want to add is right before the end of the content, we'll add a dialog footer. So you're going to have to import that. And then inside of the footer, we'll pass in the search pagination, like so. So that way it's in the footer of the dialog, and this is what I was able to get to work better than the previous implementation. And you don't have to do this. It's just my preference. Technically, the tutorial was done in the last chapter, but that's okay. So let's go ahead and add these last parts to the drawer. So in the drawer, we're going to add underneath the description, we'll add the search input. Well, I'll tell you what. Yeah, so search input, and then search results, search pagination will go here. But then we also need to import the drawer footer. And this is the one that was giving me a lot of trouble. But after I realized what it was doing, this ended up fixing it. So when we save that, now we can go ahead and save, add a new book. You'll see that, yeah, your dialog footer shows up the way it should. Your search box shows up the way it should. We'll say Harry Potter, as usual. There we go. And now if I go to resize this, you'll see that the footer shows up as expected. So yeah, there might be one or two more things that I need to do actually. So let me just review what I have real quick. Yeah, I think I actually need to get rid of this, or I need to relocate all of this stuff up top. Wait, drawer footer. I'm confused. Oh, that's weird. I guess I commented it out, but it's still imported it above. Let me actually move these up because these should not be at the bottom of the file. So I guess it doesn't matter, but a little bit nicer when they're up here. So I am getting a little bit of an error. Ooh, hello. What was that about? Interesting. Not sure what I just removed. Huh. Sorry, let me undo a few things. Okay, what is going on right now? Huh. I'm having a console error. Let me double check this. Requested module book search does not have a provided export name search dialog. Oh, interesting. That makes a lot of sense. So I need to remove the search dialog now that I technically it doesn't really exist anymore. So inside of book list, wherever that search dialog was, where'd it go? I'm just gonna search for search. There it is. So we can get rid of that. Get rid of that. Save, and give it a refresh. Still broken. What is going on? Let's see. Use media query is not defined. Where am I using use media query? Oh, I'm using it here. Okay, that makes sense. So let me just import it. I must have deleted it by accident. There we go. There's the use media query. And, oh gosh, it's importing it down here. I'm gonna need to cut these back, paste them up top. I know. This is a really janky part of the tutorial. Save that. Oh, thank God. Okay, now Harry Potter. Cool, that works. Book list is still giving us an error, and that's because search dialog is no longer imported. Now we save that, and I believe that's it for this tutorial. So yeah, let me just double checking my notes real quick, make sure I'm not going to leave you all hanging. Yep. All right, cool. So that's it for this tutorial. It's nice little mobile responsive thing. I don't know what else there is to say about it. Hope you enjoyed this one, and hope you learned something.